In honor of Veterans Day, a new film commemorates the unsung heroes of the U.S. military. For over 200 years, combat chaplains of every faith have provided life and death support on the front lines. Their extraordinary stories are brought to life in an inspiring new documentary film from executive producer Chris Pratt. The Fighting Spirit, a combat chaplain's journey. Today, I have executive producer Rick Hall and retired U.S. Army chaplain Jeff, if I'm saying this right, Strucker?
Struker.
Struker. Okay, thank you. Guys, it's a very emotional film. Very well done. I have to say that. I'll start off with you, Rick. Where did this come from? I mean, how did you get together with Chris? How did you decide to do something on this?
Well, I think some of the inspiration came from the story of Jeff here. I had been aware of Jeff's story through the movie Black Hawk Down, which portrayed his story. And I thought that's really interesting. My friends at Paulus Productions in Los Angeles, which is a nonprofit that tells really positive stories, thought that it was a subject matter worth exploring. I reached out to my friend Chris Pratt and said, I think that there's a story worth telling here. And it turns out there were a lot of stories worth telling. And so it just kind of snowballed from there. And it's been a 4-year journey. There's that word journey. It's in the title of the movie, as you mentioned. And so I feel like I went on my own journey. And here we are coming out in theaters for Veterans Day.
You keep saying journey, and I kept getting that from the movie that through our lives, we go through different chapters and different journeys. So that was you touched home with me. I got to say that. Jeff, Black Hawk Down, I've seen the movie, but to experience the way that you did and how you told your story was just amazing. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was an enlisted guy for many years in the Army with a very, very strong faith. And in the middle of the battle that became Black Hawk Down, my faith made all of the difference. But I also realized that a lot of my buddies didn't share my faith. And there was a very definite moment after the fight was over with that I felt God calling me to touch the soul of America's warriors. And that's what set me on the journey to become an Army chaplain. And man, I loved having the privilege of serving my heroes. The guys and gals in the military really are my heroes. And I'm thrilled that this project finally got finished and it's hitting theaters this weekend.
Yeah, most definitely. There are two stories besides yours that really stick out, and that's Emil's story and the four chaplains story that people probably have never heard of. How did you manage to get those stories, find out about it, and then bring them out? I'm going to talk to you first, Jeff, and then you in a minute. Go ahead.
Well, everyone who serves as a military chaplain knows the stories of those four chaplains that went down, gladly gave their life up so that those guys and gals on that boat could survive. Chaplains Fox and Poling and the other two. And it's the way that you're introduced to chaplaincy. Like, this is part of what it might cost you to serve as a military chaplain. And I'm thrilled that Rich and his team made that a big part of this story.
I think Jeff is right. A lot of chaplains know the four chaplains story. There's a museum dedicated to them. They were honored by Congress and the president. However, I didn't know about their story until we stumbled upon this little piece of tape of Frank Sinatra talking about their story. And I thought, I think there might be something here. And with Father Capon, that one happened very unexpectedly. We were halfway through production on the movie, and Father Capon's remains were discovered and identified 70 years after his death in a Korean prisoner of war camp. And they were brought back to the US and they were going to be buried in Wichita, Kansas. And we didn't quite know how that would impact our work, but we decided to send a camera crew there. We sent my co-director, Justin Roberts, who's a former Army combat chaplain, to go shoot it all. And I think it's really where we found the heartbeat for the movie, because it really did become a journey that impacted so many lives. And the entire town of Wichita shut down to celebrate this single combat chaplain, but really all chaplains. And if you know anything about the Catholic Church and the military, they know how to put on a show. And this was an incredible show. And so we were thrilled to decide just halfway through that it would suddenly become an integral part of our story.
Speaking of impact, start off with you, Rich, and then Jeff. What do you want the audience to take away? I've already told you what it did to me. It impacted me quite a bit. What do you want the audience to take away, Rich?
I'm really grateful that it touched you. I think we're seeing that with some of the audience reactions in these advanced screenings that we're doing leading up to the release on Veterans Day. In fact, that journey for us started with a screening at the Pope's house. And who knew that the Pope had a screening room in his house that was built in 900 AD? It's an old chapel, and we were honored to start that journey there. And I think we're seeing audiences have those reactions. I think that for me, the takeaway I want audiences to have is to come away from there with a call to action to reach out to your veteran friends and family on Veterans Day. I think, as Jeff says in the movie so eloquently, battle can leave scars on your soul. And I think what chaplains teach us is that one person really can make a difference. So I think that one phone call to just somebody that is a veteran, to make sure that they're okay, tell them what they mean to you, tell them what their service means to you on Veterans Day. I really want audiences to come away with that.
Yeah, and I would like for audiences to be moved as well. I hope this isn't just educating people on a calling to military chaplaincy that they didn't know existed. I hope they're so moved by what they see that they go away with a little bit deeper appreciation of our freedom in this country, but maybe even moved enough to do what Rich just said and reach out to somebody or to think of veteran this weekend.
You know, I like what you said, but I think one of the other things that people will take away from it is what I took away from it was the sacrifices that these young men
Yeah.
give, not only with their lives, but mentally coming back home, what they experience and when they need to get over. Because I can't imagine if you're in combat, you've got to come home with some form of PTSD, no matter who you are.
Yeah, well, combat is deeply emotional, but it's also deeply spiritually touching. So I hope this movie touches on a little bit of that for audiences.
I've been speaking with executive producer Rich Hall and retired U.S. chaplain. Jeff, you got to say your name for me one more time. I'm terrible with names.
Struker. It's pronounced Struker.
You have to forgive me on this. The movie
All
is,
good.
thank you. The movie is Fighting Spirit, a combat chaplain's journey. You got to see it. It was very educational. It was very emotional and very impactful. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Morning Blend.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.